Hello and welcome to my review of Ready Player One, the new Spielberg movie. I'm going to review this from the perspective of not having read the book. So I don't know how it compares to the book. I don't know what has changed. I'm just gonna base this movie on its own. I'm also going to have a look at this movie from the perspective of a gamer, of course. And because of that, there were a lot of things that I just didn't like because it wouldn't work well in a game. Of course, I know that a game isn't a movie, so they can't translate everything. So I haven't put that in this review. But I have made a list of all the things that I didn't like, all the nitpicky things as well. So if you want to see that, there's a link in the description to my website where I've put that list. But yeah, this movie, I was very hesitant to go out and see it because I was expecting it to be just some action on screen and that's it. And also, from the trailers, it seems like there would be a love story again, and I don't like movies that have that as a forefront where just every story, a love story has to be pushed in. For example, with Pacific Rim, I love that it looked like they were going to do a love story and then just they didn't. But yeah, I decided no, I'm not going to watch this, I'm going to see A Quiet Place. But it turned out it only had a one-day screening over here. So I missed that, so then I decided, oh well, I'm here now, so let's go and see Ready Player One. And yeah, I'm not a fan of this movie. So let's go into the review. I'm saying I'm not a fan of this movie, it doesn't mean that I think this movie is trash, because it isn't. But there are a lot of things that just didn't make sense story-wise. Weirdly enough, the just action on screen and the love story that I was talking about, those weren't problems at all. I would have liked it that there would be more story overall and less action, and also just the love story gone. But it wasn't annoying me while watching the movie. But the thing that did annoy me was all of these references, and of course you have to expect that in a movie like this, but they were all references from the 80s to now, 2018. But this movie takes place in 2040, and between 2018 and 2040 there should have been new characters, but you don't see them in this movie. The only new characters are the protagonists and the antagonists, and that's it. All the other people, their avatars, are all pop culture references that we already know. How is that possible? There would have been new games with new characters in this time. So I think most people will say yeah, but we don't know that, so it's much more effective to use characters that we know. It's true, but for world building, this doesn't make it more believable. So let's do a quick summary of the story first. Basically, the world is fucked, most people are poor, and their only way out is the Oasis. That's their world. And they basically can do everything in there. It's just one big game that is made out of multiple games. Like you could play Minecraft in there, you could go on a vacation and surf. You just could do everything in there. But if you die, you lose your coins. And coins is basically the one thing that you need to have to do everything. So the maker of that game, one of the makers, Alloway, I think, died. And he placed 3 keys somewhere with 3 clues to find the keys. And if you have all 3 keys, you will become the owner of the game. You will get an Easter egg and that's it, the golden egg. So basically the people want to find the egg, of course, because they also get, I think it was $15 million or 15 billion. I don't know. It was just not all that much. There's also one company called IOI, which want to take control of the Oasis so they can put ads anywhere and just make people pay to use the Oasis for their own profit. So basically it's your main group against IOI. And that's the whole movie. So right off the get-go, one weird thing is that IOI has nothing to do with the company from the makers of the Oasis, but they can control a lot of stuff that's happening in the Oasis. Why would a different company have control over what's happening in your game? That would be the same as Activision Blizzard having something to say about EA's games and what's happening in them. That's just weird. Also, there's no government legislation. I know this is something that most people won't think about, but just world building wasn't done correctly, in my opinion. Because this is something that you'd think about. They blow up a whole car park and they say from, oh, the government isn't going to look at that. And I'm thinking, why? You just murdered a lot of people. Why wouldn't the government go and do an investigation? But there are other things in world building that are wrong as well. For example, how you move in the game. So it's just they have VR glasses like we know them now, but then wireless. And the main person will wait, something like that. Percival, he basically is moving in a van and he's in something like a treadmill. The 2-axis treadmill that we know in real life, the Instradeck or something. But he is held in place by all these wires later on in the movie. So that's how he stays in place. First with the treadmill and then with wires. But then the main antagonist, Nolan, he's in his big chair. And you wouldn't be able to move in that chair. So how does he move? That isn't consistent. And then you have also lots of people who are in the Oasis just on the street with their headset on. How do they walk? How do they not bump into each other? How do they bump into buildings? Just those details are missing. And I know that I'm not going into the story all that much and just the movie overall, and that's just because it's fine. There's not that much to say about it, but just these things are the things that for me at least drag the movie down a lot. One thing that I also noticed right from the get-go is the exposition. So they open with the exposition, then you get a whole intro video to the Oasis, and then they do the exact same exposition again. Not word for word, but they say the same thing. Oh, my parents are dead, I'm now living with my aunt. I honestly thought it was an editing mistake, so I don't know what they were thinking there. I do want to know what the reason for that is, so if you know that, please let me know in the comments. One thing that was also very weird to see was in the Oasis, everybody was at peace with each other. That's not what would happen in a game like this, where you can have your own avatar and it's basically free roam. Look at VR chat. Look at Grand Theft Auto Online. Like, people will harass each other a lot. So in that sense it isn't realistic. And the last two things that are kind of nitpicky is H, the character of H. If you watch the movie, it's very predictable how that will play out. I don't want to spoil it, but it's very predictable. The other thing is, at the end they have a shield, which is impenetrable. It's a 99 level item. With everything we know about Holloway and the other creator, they wouldn't put that in the game. So why is it in the game? It doesn't make any sense. But now for my last things that are based on a story that are just not right. So first off, the first clue. It's a race that you need to finish, and if you finish it, you get the key. But basically, you need to find a clue on how to finish the race in the mind of Holloway, because he has made an archive that you can visit. And by the curator is also pretty predictable if you listen closely. But it's you come to that archive and you hear a voiceover that said people have looked at this for 5 years. All people in the world have looked at this for 5 years and they didn't find what to do. And basically there's one scene where literally Holloway goes backwards, 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 backwards. And I'm like, okay, how did people not notice this for 5 years? Everybody would see that. And even if they didn't have the clue, people will, at a race, if it is unbeatable the normal way, the first thing they would do is go backwards. That's just how gamers work. So stuff like that, if you are a gamer, it doesn't make sense. I think if you're not a gamer, you can go along with it. But just in a movie about games, it doesn't feel right. And the other thing is with the second clue, which is basically The Shining, and that scene is awesome. I would recommend seeing this movie for that scene alone. It's great. But the clue and the answer doesn't make sense. So the clue is a creator that hates his own creation. The answer is The Shining movie. Because Stephen King, who wrote The Shining, hated the movie The Shining. But the movie The Shining is Stanley Kubrick's creation, not the creation of Stephen King. Stephen King made the book The Shining, and as far as I know, he doesn't dislike the book The Shining. So that clue doesn't fit. And spoiler here, the answer to The Shining segment is that the step that Holloway never took was to kiss his date. So okay, the answer is they need to kiss. I thought about that a lot earlier than the characters in the movie, but okay. But then they try to kiss the girl, and then one of the characters gets there and asks, "Do you want to dance?" And that's it, they finished. They didn't kiss. Like, how is "do you want to dance" the answer to the step that they never took? Of course, you don't really know what the step I never took is if you haven't seen the movie, but it's basically he hasn't kissed the girl. So how is dancing the answer? And the other thing is, basically one of the main characters gets captured. She gets put into the cell. And how do you escape from the cell? Literally, there's a lever inside the cell. So they don't open it from the outside, but from the inside. How stupid design is that? Like, imagine a prison where the prisoners can just push a button and walk out. And then after that, she can just freely walk around in the cells, then go up into the main headquarters of IOI. She can freely walk there, use their VR machines. She can go into the headquarters of the main bad guy, Nolan. And nobody sees her, even though there are big windows to the side and people are walking there, so they would have seen her. And she can use the chair even of Nolan to get into the Oasis. It's just, where are the security guards? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's just to get the story moving along. I would call this Deus Ex Machina, the movie. It's just, everything is happening just right for the main characters. And that's why I didn't like this movie. It's just not a well-written movie. Just too many things happen just because. Too many things don't happen like the real world does things. Too many things are contradicting with what we know, which make the Easter eggs kind of pointless. But the first clue was really cool. The final fight was really cool. Some of the visuals are really cool. I think the main characters look awful, but that's just my opinion. So yeah, overall I would say go watch this movie just for the final fight alone. That was a really cool fight, and the Shining scene especially. But it's just, it misses so much that a good movie, that makes a good movie great. And just the story isn't well written, and that's a shame. I think especially if you aren't a gamer, then you will enjoy this movie. But yeah, it's just, if you can't handle that a movie has changed stuff to make it feel better as a movie instead of a game, then this maybe isn't a movie for you. I would give this movie a 6.5. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad movie. But it's just, it isn't the great movie that everybody says it is. But yeah, those were some of my thoughts on this movie. If you want to see all the things that I didn't like about this, the very nitpicky things, as I said, the link will be in the description for my document on my website for a bit everything that I didn't like about this movie. And for now, thank you for watching, and see you all next time. And yeah, let's get to the real Oasis.
Place that feels like I mean anything.